What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so today's video, we are actually gonna be going back and redoing something we did a ways back. It's something I said I would never do, but you know what? Here I am, I'm doing it. Because in light of everything that was announced today, DC fandom, Milestone media and everything is coming back, just like I told you guys was gonna happen. I told you guys was gonna happen. Nobody would listen to me. Everybody just wanted to believe what they wanted to believe. They're like, oh, they're not gonna give it to us. They're not gonna make it happen. And I keep saying it over and over again. It was gonna happen, and guess what? They finally announced that it's gonna happen. It's all gonna start next year in February of 2021. And on the way to that, there are gonna be a lot of interesting things coming up. They're going to be re-releasing a lot of the old original backlog of Milestone media leading up to the events of that. They're going to be re-releasing the trading cards. We've gotten word on new series and new ideas, IPs, and things like that. And I thought, you know what? Let's go back and readdress the video I made about making a cinematic universe centered around Milestone Media's comics. So with that, instead of doing a full breakdown of every single title and everything, we're going to do it a little bit differently because I'm not really that interested in building a cinematic universe. You got to get those first, second, and third movies right for you can really have a cinematic universe. We are going to focus on just a Static Shock movie. We're going to focus on the character Static. We're going to make that movie. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do it. We're going to break it down. We're going to break down the cast, who's going to write and direct it, the story beats we want to hit in this movie. But first, wash your damn hands. And let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Before we get started, if you want to see more awesome comic book videos like this one, it only takes 2 clicks to become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. Click.
Now, one of the things I want to do right off the rip, something I didn't do in the last video, is I didn't cast, any of the movies that I talked about in that video. We're actually going to do that here. We're going to run through the cast and who I want to write and direct this movie first. Then I'm going to go over a breakdown of how I want that movie to play out. Maybe not everything blow by blow, but just the core things that I want to see happen in that movie to really just, kind of make it, what I want it to be. Now, I want to go ahead and put a caveat on this. This is my list. This is my fantasy casting, my fantasy booking. So if you agree or disagree, save it for the comments, and that's fine. I'm sure I am incredibly wrong about everything that I'm saying to somebody. First things first, we have to cast the lead, Virgil Ovid Hawkins. And a lot of people have asked me this, and this has actually been my answer as of late, so this is just what I'm gonna go with. And a lot of people may not know this guy or be familiar with his work. However, I do want to give the nod to Rory D. Travis. Those of you who are familiar with Power Rangers Beast Morphers, one of the, right now, the current incarnation of Power Rangers. He plays the Red Ranger and leader of the team, and he does, in his role as the Red Ranger on that show, he does kind of exhibit some of the same character traits that Virgil tends to have, and I would like to see that. I also think he has a nice look to him. I think he could play that character. He hasn't done a whole heap of a lot, but he does have an upcoming movie called The Diner that's in pre-production right now. We haven't seen it yet, so don't really know, but I mean, most of his work is basically been on Power Rangers for the most part. But I would like to give him the nod to play Virgil Ovid Hawkins. I think he would do a fantastic job with it. He's already proven he has the physicality to do it, because they don't use stock footage that much anymore for those Power Ranger shows. They actually have them do a lot of their own stunts now. Next up, this one's gonna be a little different because technically, if I remember correctly, Virgil did have a fairly decent sized group of friends, but I want to pare that down some just to kind of cut down on the number of characters we're introducing in the story. And one of the things I thought was a wise decision was to take the character of Richie from the Static Shock cartoon, who was technically an amalgam of 2 of Virgil's other friends and brought together to make one coherent character, and that is the character of Richard Foley, who otherwise goes as Richie. And of course, because of the nature of the character of Static, most people are more familiar with Static Shock than they actually are the comic anyway, so I don't think anyone's actually going to miss those 2 characters. I think they would probably just be more inclined to have Richie. So that's what we're going to do. And for that character, I'm actually going to pick Jaden Martell, who some may remember from It Chapter 1 and 2, as well as the movie Knives Out. Next character up on the list is going to be Larry Wade, who kind of tends to be the, I don't want to necessarily say foil of Virgil. He's a friend of Virgil's, but kind of has a rougher edge to him than what Richie would have. Obviously, he has a dark side to him, and he also comes from a rougher neighborhood, and as a result of that, he can kind of be a bad influence on Virgil, whether it's intentional or not. And for that one, I figured let's go with Jordan Calloway, who many will know from the movie Countdown, but maybe even more so from his role as Painkiller on the CW's Black Lightning. Next up is going to be Frida Gorin, and for that one, I just went with the obvious low-hanging fruit on this one. I went with Sophia Lillis, who also from It Chapter 1 and 2, as well as the recently canceled Netflix series, I Am Not Okay With This. She has kind of a playfulness too in her acting ability that I think would kind of match up well with Frida Gorin. Frida Gorin is also a very aloof character to Virgil's advances, so that's also another good reason to kind of have her there. But also I think she would do really good at being Virgil's, like, I guess, I don't know, best friend, not best friend per se, but just a friend that he's just super duper close with and can just, talk to about anything. Virgil will definitely be in love with Frida Gorin secretly, but that's not going to be the focus of the movie. The script, none of it. Yes, it will be made very clear that he likes her. It'll be made maybe possibly clear that she likes him, but just the whole nature of having to have a love story built into a superhero movie, I'm just not into. So it's just not going to be there. It will be something that happens organically over time. Next up on the list is going to be Static's father, Robert Hawkins. And for this one was kind of a tough one because you know what? I thought about it long and hard. I thought, you know what? Why not get the original voice of Static Shock to play his dad? I said, let's just grab Phil Lamar right off the street. Let's just grab and bring him on in. He can play Robert Hawkins. Phil Lamar, it's perfect. He can literally come in, play that character. It would be amazing. I think it would be great. It would be a great nod, I think. And for those who don't know who Phil Lamar is, I mean, most people probably remember him as Marvin from Pulp Fiction, who got in the head. Some also may remember as, yes, the original voice of Static Shock. He also was the voice of Vamp. He was on Mad TV. He's voice acted Jon Stewart on the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited animated series. He has done a huge amount of work, and I think he'd be perfect for it. Not to mention, it'd just be a nice Easter egg and nod and homage to what came before. Next up for Gene Hawkins, I would pick Tachina Arnold, who many may know from the TV series Martin or Everybody Hates Chris. But I think just the nature of the relationship that Virgil and his mother Jean have, I think it would be really awesome to have Tachina Arnold because she's really good at playing that character that is really close with the child, but also at the same time can be a hard ass, on them and can really bust their balls. And that's kind of the relationship that Virgil and his mother Jean had. Yeah, she loved him, and yeah, they were cool, they were tight, but man, she would put her foot in his ass sometimes. Speaking of foot in ass, we're also gonna cast Sharon Hawkins, Virgil's sister, and for that one, we're gonna go with Sierra Elena McClain, who you might know from Daddy's Little Girls and Mindhunter. That's a character that, yeah, she's gonna have to bust Virgil's chops, and it's something you gotta have. He's gotta have that sister figure in his life who is constantly railing on him, no matter how much she loves him. Now, there's still two characters that we gotta introduce, and these characters I think are gonna be very important, but for very different reasons. First and foremost is I am going to, just like I did with my original video, I'm still gonna include the character of Rocket in this story, though she will not be Rocket in this story. She will not be suiting up as Rocket in the story. She will just be known as Raquel Irvin, and that's it. Now, for the part of Rocket, aka Raquel Irvin, we want Riel Downs. And for those who are unfamiliar, Riel Downs has been in works like The Adventures of Kid Danger and Henry Danger. I won't really go too much further into that from there if you want to know more about why I'm picking her. Her, unlike a lot of the other characters on this list, I actually did a little video that I'll put in the cards or a link down in the description below or pinned comment or whatever. You can check out and learn more about Rocket. And in that video, I explain why I picked her. Like, as far as Virgil will know, he has no idea who she really is. And as far as Virgil is aware, she has no idea who he really is. But she is going to be a kid at school who just kind of happens to always be around when shit goes down. And we're not going to play the whole mystery, oh, is she in on it? For the people who are uninitiated, we're not going to do that. But I mean, we are going to make it very clear that there is something up with her. And then, of course, last most certainly not least, because you got to have a villain. You have to have a villain. And we're just going to go ahead and roll with Virgil's first actual villain. And that is going to be Francis Stone, aka Hot Streak. And for Hot Streak, we are going to go with actor Dacre Montgomery, who some of you may know from Stranger Things, season 2, and 3, as well as the relatively recent Power Rangers movie reboot. For that one, we need a bully. We need someone who you can get inside Virgil's head, push him around, shove him around, make him feel like crap, because that's exactly what Hot Streak does. Hot Streak thrives on bullying people and making people feel lesser than himself. And I think Dacre Montgomery, he has proven in his multiple roles he's very good at that. Now, as far as who I want to write this, originally what I thought, I wanted a writer and director all-in-one combo and just go with it. And I originally thought, you know what, just have Reggie Hudlin do it. Have him write and direct this. So he doesn't really do a whole heap of a lot of directing. I mean, he does, but mostly does like TV shows and stuff like that now, which that's fine. I would actually rather him focus the full brunt of his powers on the script of this, because he is really good at writing a tight script. And I think anyone who's ever gone back, go back and watch movies like House Party, even the second and third ones, because he wrote those as well, though he only directed the first one. He also wrote the screenplay for Bebe's Kids and countless other things, even more recent things. He's produced a lot of television over the last like couple of decades. He's a force of nature in Hollywood, and I don't think many people realize it because maybe they just don't think about it, but yeah, he is a big name. And not to mention, he's also one of the big forces, the driving forces behind the relaunch of Milestone Media, so I mean, why not? Now, as far as directing it, I would say, yeah, sure. I mean, he could go ahead and direct it, but if he wanted to pass those duties off, I would say give it to Rick Famuyiwa. Some of you may remember he made his directorial debut with the movie The Wood. He was also one of the few directors who was originally attached to direct the Flash movie that, ultimately he moved on from that one. But one of the more recent films he's done that is a personal favorite of mine, I watch it all the time, is the movie Dope. And I feel like he could really bring all of this together, especially paired with Reggie Hudlin's penmanship. Oh my God, it would be an amazing movie. It would just be amazing. In this movie, originally I wanted this movie to be kind of like a Spider-Man Homecoming style vibe, and that may still come out in some small things here and there, but ultimately I still want this movie to kind of stand on its own and have its own legs. I still want Virgil to be in high school, and I want him to still be that typically goofy, silly, funny, nerdy character that he is from the comics. I still want it to be his thing to, hang out with his friends and, play Dungeons and Dragons, play video games, and, talk about comic books and Star Trek and crap like that. I want him to have all of those character traits still intact. I kind of want him to be a little bit of a square bear too. I mean, I think that's actually one of the things I think that makes Static so awesome. He's not your stereotypical black kid, even back in the, early 90s when he debuted. Another thing too, I want Larry to still be the reason he gets roped into the whole Big Bang shenanigans. I kind of want this movie to be the jump off point, the launching point, the point where people say, oh wow, this is some crazy stuff that's going on, and this is nuts, this is wild. This movie is going to open up a wider universe to people without making you feel like you have to watch a gajillion other movies or prepare to watch a gajillion other movies to get it. Once again, there will be no focus on Virgil dating anyone. Yes, he will probably wind up dating Daisy by the time you get to the second movie, but it's gonna be one of those things. It's not the main focus of everything. These are things that'll just happen. The main thing for the story is going to be early on, Virgil is gonna get punked out by Francis. This is gonna be how it is. He is going to get bodied in class in front of Queen and Country, everybody, all of his friends, Richie, Larry, the new girl, Raquel, Daisy, everybody, and especially, more important than all of them, Frida Gorin. He is gonna get played hard body, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It has to happen. And we're gonna play it up. I would have Dacre Montgomery play up Hot Streak's entire racist behavior. Like, it's one of those things that it was kind of downplayed a little bit, even though it wasn't necessarily completely downplayed, but it was a little bit downplayed that, Hot Streak was slick racist. He tried to act like he was black, like he tried to act in a very urban style manner, for lack of a better way to put it. But at the same time, he seemed to look down on Virgil in a way that only a white person who is basically a culture vulture towards black culture could be. And that's something I kind of want to play up. I want it to be very obvious, and I almost want it to be painful. So that way it's more painful for the audience and that they will jive more with Virgil as a result of that. And yeah, he is going to basically get pretty raw in his behavior towards Virgil. And it's going to end up pushing Virgil to the point where he doesn't know what to do about it. He's going to get clowned on more than one occasion. It's not going to be a simple, oh, you got me once. It's like, no, we are going to have Francis hounding Virgil more often than not. Now, I don't want to get to that point where it becomes unrealistic. Like, you see some of these movies where these kids are bullying other kids in school, and it's like, wow, where are the teachers here? Where's the principal? Why Why is nobody doing anything? Why is this kid trying to carve weird names in this kid's, stomach? We're not doing that type of thing. But just saying, just the point that he is constantly hounding him, like he's gonna be living rent-free in Virgil's head. And that's where, the drama is gonna come from later on down the stretch. Now things get interesting where, just like with the comics, Larry is gonna come in and offer a solution. Whereas to where Richie is gonna say, man, you just gotta leave well enough alone and maybe don't get involved. I mean, you could try and fight him back, but man, you're probably gonna get your ass whipped. Larry, on the other hand, is gonna have another solution. Larry is basically gonna tell him, hey, look, I got just the perfect way to get him. And he's gonna introduce a gun into the equation. What he's trying to do is he's trying to get Virgil to basically pull up on Francis when, Francis is, gonna be around all of his friends, and basically embarrass him in front of them just the same way that Virgil was embarrassed in front of his friends. But what Larry is not prepared for is that though Virgil seems to go along with this, Virgil is gonna get cold feet. He's gonna realize once he has that gun in his hands, once he pulls up on Francis in front of his gangster buddies and whatnot, he is gonna realize that no, I am not about that life. I don't want to be about that life, and I don't want to do this. This is not my way. This is not who I am, and this isn't the answer to solving my problems. Now, a lot of that is going to come from fear, but a lot of that's also just going to come from his own personal morals, but a lot of it will be fear in that moment. And of course, while all this is going on, this is technically a gang meetup that Virgil has doesn't even realize is actually a gang meetup. He just thinks that, they're wannabe gangsters. But in fact, this is an actual gang meetup, and police were actually checking out the spot, and they are going to pull up, and they are going to unleash the tear gas on them that we know of from the comics that was referred to as quantum juice. We're just going to call it quantum compound and leave it at that. And this compound is going to be just like in the comics, just like with quantum juice. It's going to be an untested mutagenic agent that is going to be laced into the tear gas, and it is going to have unforeseen results on all the people who are hit by it. Both the police, Virgil, Hot Streak, and the rest of his gang. Little does Virgil know, this was actually a legit gang meetup. It wasn't just Francis's gang that was there, but also a rival gang was gonna be there as well. Virgil doesn't realize until it's too late exactly what he's walked up on it, but because he's kind of thrown himself into it, he just kind of feels he has to go through with it. Only ultimately he doesn't. Now, of course, once Larry realizes that Virgil is not going to do what he's gonna do, he's actually gonna take the gun and run off with it. But Virgil, kind of in a state of shock, pun intended, is gonna be kind of caught flat-footed, as are some of the other gang members, and they are gonna get hit with this quantum compound when the police pull up. But we are gonna be under the impression that this quantum compound that was in this tear gas, everyone that was caught in it died, except for Virgil. Virgil, as far as he is aware, is the only person who actually survived it, at least in his own mind. But what we're actually doing here is we're setting up a wider narrative for down the stretch. We're actually dropping a major Blood Syndicate Easter egg, because those of you who remember the comics remember that Brick House was one of the first Bang Babies that Virgil met after he was infected with that compound. And that's what's going to be the case here. He's going to see it, but he's not going to be understanding exactly what he saw. So as far as he's concerned, he is going to think most of them are dead, or that something bad has happened to them in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But realizing later he has superpowers, he's actually going to try and learn how to use them, and, as one would expect, use them for good. Now, yeah, at first he will probably try and use them to his own advantage, but he will eventually become a legit superhero, and he's not gonna tell everybody about his powers, which is something he didn't do in the comics either. However, he is going to let Richie in on it. And just for Clara, Richie is not going to be becoming gear or anything like that in this movie. That is something for down the stretch as well. We got too much going on, well, we got to keep it focused. This is the story of Virgil, not of Richie. So yeah, we got that. That is for later. Now, of course, he's going to be using his powers for good. He's going to be, stopping criminals, and he's even going to run into Francis's old gang at some point. But that's when he's going to learn, after he's sunned them a time or two, he's going to learn they have a superpower leader of their own. And it just so happens that Hot Streak didn't die during that quantum compound being unleashed. He got powers just as well, and that's how he will become Hot Streak. And just like before, he is going to treat Virgil the same way he treated him before, only this time not really knowing that that's Virgil. This is just how he treats people. I mean, yeah, he is racist, but at the same time, this is just kind of what he does. And he is going to be bodying Virgil because once again, he's living rent-free in Virgil's head, and Virgil has to kind of try and find his way out of it. It's one of those situations where it's not necessarily that Francis is more powerful than Virgil, Virgil is, in all reality, actually more powerful than Francis, but because Francis has that Vulcan death grip on Virgil's mind, Virgil can't fight him back effectively. And they, of course, will eventually have a big showdown, and I would say I wouldn't necessarily even want to put Frida at the center of that. I would actually say maybe put Raquel at the center of that. Maybe just have Francis take some random girl that happens to be hanging around Virgil when he pulls up at the school one day. Who knows? Haven't really worked that part out in my head yet. But the thing that is going to be important is that he is going to stop Hot Streak. He is going to get over himself. He is going to find the strength and the willpower to stand up to someone who's been bullying him for the better part of his high school career. He realizes that Hot Streak, even with powers, is still just a sad and lonely bully, and he's going to take him down. And to beat him, he can't just try to be something he's not. He can't just beat Hot Streak with brute force alone. He has to use the tools that he had that made him better than Hot Streak even before the Big Bang. It is going to be his brain. It's going to be his smarts, his intelligence, his ingenuity, and his ability to think outside the box. And that is how he's going to take Hot Streak down. And then, of course, later on, we'll learn Hot Streak had people he had to answer to, namely someone by the name of Holocaust, who we will all remember, who is an OG member of the Blood Syndicate, who just so happens to have started up his own version of the gang, something that actually is from the comics. A lot of people forget there are actually 2 Blood Syndicates in Milestone Media Comics. There were the more heroic bunch that more people are familiar with, but a lot of people forget that Holocaust had his own Blood Syndicate. Now, in this case, we may actually steer away from calling him Holocaust. We may stick to his other alias, which was, if I'm not mistaken, was Pyre, as in like Funeral Pyre, because he had fire powers or whatever. That's fine. We are going to basically probably get away from that name, because it is kind of a problematic name. Yeah, but everybody loved naming their characters Holocaust back in the day, so yeah, whatever. Yeah, Hot Streak has to answer for what's going on, because as far as they were aware, this static kid should not have been able to take him out, and it's going to make his gang look bad. And now he has to step up and take this kid out. And basically kind of telling Francis, no, don't worry about it. You've already done enough. Pyre is going to step up, and we will learn in the second movie that we're going to go through that arc where Pyre actually tried to get Virgil to join his gang at first, and then ultimately they wind up becoming enemies. And I think that would actually be something really nice little thing to kind of throw in there. And then of course we would, just like every other superhero movie these days, we got to have a post-credit stinger, and I would actually keep the one that I posed in my original video, that we would have Virgil meet up with Raquel later that night, which actually makes even more sense for her to be the one that actually gets caught up in all this. She will basically be like, hey, I have someone who really wants to meet you. At this point, with this point, Virgil not necessarily realizes that maybe Raquel already knows who he is by this point, or maybe she already knew who he was even beforehand, or what was going on from the jump. And what will happen is that she will tell him like, hey, I have somebody I want you to meet. And you can kind of, if you want to throw in like some dialogue just to kind of flesh it out, you could basically have Static say something like, is it anyone I would know, anyone from around here? And you could have her just simply reply that he's not exactly from here, basically implying that she wants him to meet her partner Icon, thus setting him up for his movie. I really think that could work beautifully. But anyways, I don't know. That's just what I'm thinking here. And like I said, you could kind of set up, future movies down the road. You could bring in Hardware. You could bring in Icon and Rocket. You could bring in more Static movies, more Hardware movies, more Icon and Rocket movies. You could even bring in some of the other lesser known characters from Milestone Media, like Zombie. You could bring in the Blood Syndicate to get their own movie. I'm talking about the legit Blood Syndicate. You could later on build up to a Shadow Cabinet movie. Hell, you could even bring in Cobalt, a character most people don't even talk about when they talk about Milestone Media. You could bring in Death Wish. You could bring in all of these other characters. And who knows, maybe I'll talk about how you could do that. But anyways, let me know what you think about a Static Shock movie. Wash your damn hands and sound off in the comments. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in $1, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus Ultra!